Welcome to the Salt Strong Fishing Podcast. Salt Strong has been helping saltwater anglers catch more fish in less time for 10 years and is now the largest and most trusted saltwater fishing community in America. If you want to catch more saltwater fish, then keep listening. If you want to speed up your fish catching results even faster, then join the private insider community at saltstrong.com. Here's your host, Joe Simons. Like diamonds.
These 6 states spend more money on fishing than any other by a long shot. Hey, everybody, Joe Simons, like diamonds.
And Luke Simons.
Like diamonds. This is pretty cool. So ASA, American Sport Fishing Association, along with Outdoor Foundation, Recreational Boating and Fishing Foundation, and Take Me Fishing, they put together these really in-depth, and I think it's like 65 pages of data on fishermen, recreational fishermen. This does not include commercial fishermen in America, broken out by state, broken out by gender, broken out by ethnicity. And it is, to me, it's fascinating. So I was like, after reading through a lot of this, I was like, Luke, we got to do a podcast because most people aren't going to read. I mean, all in all, it's hundreds of pages if you went and looked at every single little graph and everything. But even the main report, which is like the curated part, is 65 pages. So I'm going to see if I can pull up this infographic here real quick, Lukey. Maybe you do a little talking or something. You know why I pull up this infographic?
Yeah, I guess one thing that shot at me, it's probably going to, I believe we're looking at the same infographic, but yeah, there's 57 million Americans went fishing, and over, I guess almost 40% were female anglers, which is awesome. Yep, you got the same one. That was really, that was a giant surprise. I was assuming it'd be more like a 80-20 or even 90-10. So I really... And
it has been. I save these every year. And the one, I guess, from 2 years ago, it was way different. It was like 16%. So the women have almost doubled now in just a couple of years, which is awesome. And yeah, the number, if you guys are listening to this, we'll make sure to do a good job of reading, because I know a lot of people listen to these podcasts instead of just watching them. So 57.7 million Americans went fishing. And that was in 2023, by the way. So they put these reports out. Obviously, it takes forever. It's a ton of data. So this is the 2023 numbers. They released them at the beginning of 2025 and call them the 2024 numbers just to clear things up. So I had to dig in and realize that. So yeah, almost 60 million, which is pretty cool. One of the stats they had shared there was that the U.S. anglers, there's approximately 60 million, outnumber the population of every single state. And I know the headline of this was this top 6 states. We're going to show that here in just a second as well. But just wanted to go through some of these main numbers here. So all of you anglers who are listening realized how big of an impact we're having. I mean, that's crazy, right? That the amount of fishermen is bigger than every single state. 4.2 million new anglers. That's awesome, right? So fishing is growing. There was some churn, meaning there were quite a few million people who didn't go fishing, either because they were too old, literally died, etc. But it still is growing, which is good. The women, at 37%, which is 21 million. That's the highest number ever recorded on record. 5.2 million African-American participants. That's the highest on record. 6.3 million Hispanic participants. That's the highest on record. The youth, 13 million youth. That's the highest on record. I mean, everything is looking up, which is cool. On the youth, and this is something we've talked about before in the past, Luke. You remember that stat? It's now at 87% of the current anglers, people who are actually spending money, went fishing as a kid before the age of 12. So the people who are really buying licenses, right? The adults, because you don't have to buy a license until you're 17. So this data is on people who are older than 16 years old. So the people who went fishing, spent money, got a license, 87% of them had been fishing before the age of 12. In other words, if you haven't taken your kids or your grandkids or whatever fishing before the age of 12, the chance of them just picking it up later in life is pretty small. I mean, it's 13% according to this.
Yep.
Pretty small.
Yeah, and it's our big mission that, from the get-go that got just a good phrase that people seem to like and resonates is we just want more tackle boxes and less X boxes. So yeah, very important to get those kids out on the water, get them experienced with fishing, just at least have them experience it, and that'll significantly increase the odds. And I was, just the fact that I just had a first child and a daughter, she's going to be hopefully increasing that women fishing stat. But yeah, it's I think it's just crucial for us, whether we have kids or not, take your own kids or take a friend who has kids, just let them get out there and have a good time, because that's the number one way that our waterways are going to be protected for generations, right? It's if we don't have people who love and respect the fisheries, many or most of which are going to be the fishermen, then they're just going to go downhill. So
take a neighbor. I've gotten every one of the kids on this street. We live on a lake here in Winter Haven. I get every one of them because most of their parents, it's not like they're against fishing. They just haven't done it in a while or didn't do it growing up. And I'm getting every one of the kids. So you can get a neighbor. Usually best to ask permission from the parents, just in case they are PETA or something or crazy. But yeah, and it's cool. Some of them love it, right? And just like anything, any sport or hobby, you're going to have some that love it and want to keep coming back. I got a couple like Mr. Joe, man, I can't wait to go fish, bring it up every time. Some it's one and done, but just getting them based on this data, just getting them out there at least once and having that experience skyrockets the chances that they'll do it as an adult when they have kids, et cetera, because it was a good memory for them, regardless if it's something they're going to do every week or month or not. It's just the fact of getting him out there before that age of 12 was the critical number. So can you see this, Luke?
Yep.
Kind of go through this one as well. This is a short one. Then we'll go into the numbers of the states, which is really fascinating. So once again, American Sport Fishing Association, ASA, a great organization, puts all this stuff together. And this is showing so I mentioned earlier, the 57 million, that's the amount of people that went fishing. So that includes kids, because remember, it's 16 and under, you don't have to get a license. That also includes people that booked a charter that might not be avid anglers, for a bachelor party or for a business trip, et cetera. So this 39.9 million, almost 40 million total anglers, these are the people who purchased a fishing license that actually, essentially raised their hand and said, yeah, I'm going to invest in fishing and more than likely do it more than once. The vast majority is not a surprise, just based on America, 35 million freshwater and 12.7 million saltwater. Of course, there's some crossover, like people like Luke and I who do a little bit of both. But for 39 million total, you can see the breakout here. If you're looking, it's still, as we said earlier, 67% male, 31% female. What 1% other? What the heck does that even mean? How can he be other? Is that a different podcast?
Yeah, different podcasts. Or aliens are coming down. I don't know.
Aliens, perhaps. Okay. All right. This doesn't show. This shows the age bracket. So 35 to 44 was the highest. But in general, that 35 to 65, obviously looking at just 80-20, that's where a lot of it is happening there. But yeah, that 35 to 44 was the biggest. In 2022, sport fishing supported 1 million jobs in America, more employees than any U.S. company, with the exception of Walmart and Amazon. That's pretty cool. And the conservation side. So some of you might not know this, but the first number on here is $725 million in excise taxes. That's stuff that Luke and I contribute to that with Salt Strong. So anytime that you sell any sort of fishing equipment, rods, reels, line, lures, etc., you have to pay we have to pay it. You guys don't have to pay it. We have to pay an excise tax. And it's not that we have to pay it like it's a bad thing. It's a good thing. Really, this came from fishermen. This came from the fishing industry saying, hey, we want to make sure that some of the money that we are bringing in is going towards conservations, from boat ramps to getting more officers out there, et cetera, to basically protect our waterways, right? So
Yeah, not-
725 million.
Yeah, I didn't know anything about this for many years, really, until we got in the industry. But yeah, it's basically it's the first purchase of anything, whether it's really from manufacturers, whether it's made in the USA or overseas, it doesn't matter. It's the very first purchase. 10% of that automatically goes to conservation, which is, again, that's another big reason why it's crucial for us to make sure that this number of fishermen and women continues to increase over the years, again, just to make sure that we keep our beloved waterways as clean as possible.
Yep, that's obviously a massive impact. 897 million were from license sales, from the sales of people, buying the license, and 400 million in donations, which is a 2 billion in total contribution of conservation. Really awesome. And then this final one here, in 2022, U.S. anglers spent more than $99.4 billion, or spent more than the revenue of UPS, Lowe's, or Bank of America. So it was almost $100 billion in total spend, and they have it all broken out here by a category. So pretty awesome. Let me stop sharing that one, and we'll pull up the state numbers. So ASA also went a step further and broke out that total spend, meaning the total economic impact by state. Before I show these numbers, because Luke and I were first like, whoa, that's crazy. This includes resident and non-resident. So if you lived in Tennessee, for instance, and came down here to Florida and bought a non-resident license, bought tackle, charter, et cetera, your number is getting included in Florida for that specific trip, not anything you did in Tennessee, obviously. So just FYI, that's why some of these states are like, man, I didn't even know they had that many people. Like Alaska's one. You're going to laugh when you see the number. Alaska is one of the higher ones. Like, it's definitely in the top 20 because so many people go out there and spend a ton of money, fishing in Alaska. So let me pull that up here real quick.
Yeah, I was good on the first couple, and after that, there were a lot of surprises that I did not predict.
All right. So what was your top couple picks?
Well, Florida, I thought was number one, and then Texas up there.
Well, you'd be correct on one of them. Can you see this okay? Do I need to zoom it?
Yeah, zoom in if you can. Take that puppy up. I don't know what Texas ended up being. It was pretty high up there.
All right, so I've highlighted the top 6, and then we'll kind of talk about some other states that were interesting. So once again, total amount of anglers, this is resident and non-resident. You can see California made the top 6. 1.6 million people total were fishing there in California, and this would have been 2023. $5.6 billion in total spend. Florida at $5 million and had $10.7 billion that year. That's wild. And then it's a gap. And then here, another little smattering of states altogether. New York, that was kind of a surprise. Only had 884,000 anglers, which is the smallest number out of all the top 6, but 6.1 billion. So they were the highest spend per person. Of course, New York's got extra taxes and everything's probably more expensive there. That was still kind of mind blowing. Then North Carolina is up there, 1.4 million anglers. That's crazy where they had that many more than New York, but yet only 5.1 billion, but still go North Carolina, Tar Heels. Woo. Then Ohio.
How New York can be that high? That's like when the revenue per angler is the crazy high for that, but
it's nuts. Well, do you know why?
How's that?
Because this also includes hotels, even real estate. If like they bought or leased land, which this is all New York. Don't just think saltwater, right? This is also freshwater. So everything in New York is more expensive. So if you bought, like, they're even including, when I looked at that list, they're even including like land purchases. For instance, if you were duck hunting, or if you were, created your own little, I guess like a ranch or something like that, they would even include that in there as well. So there was some land stuff in there, which I have to imagine increased that number.
Yeah, it's a lot of land, because that's a significant number.
It's crazy. But even the hotels, I mean, think about just how expensive more expensive everything else is in New York. But I have to feeling it was some of the land stuff that got in there. Ohio, 1.7 million total anglers, which, I mean, that was, I thought Michigan would have been higher in Ohio personally. No offense to anyone in Ohio, but that was my gut. But 5.5 billion for Ohio. And then the last one in the top 6 with almost 2 million anglers and $9.2 billion was Texas. But still Florida number 1 in terms of total amount spent. Texas number 2, and then we have New York and Ohio for the top 5, and then North Carolina number 6. Pretty wild. But dude, check out Alaska. I had to go look it up. How many people do you think live in Alaska? Like, how many residents?
I have no idea. I wouldn't even know to guess.
It's less than 1 million, and they have 609,000 people fished. So it was like 800,000 or something. They have total residents, and 609,000 people fished. Obviously, it was a majority of non-resident people, I assume, unless everyone just fishes in Alaska. $1.6 billion in Alaska. That one surprised me.
Yeah, and New York being high too is you don't really think of New York. I mean, you think of New York and think of the city kind of automatically, but yeah, there's obviously has a lot of land. I lived in Rochester for 6 months, and yeah, the friend and some of the work associates there, and went ice fishing. Like, that ice fishing community is bigger than I ever thought, and like they love it. Like, and it's I don't understand why, because it's a blast. But yeah, that was my first realization that the people up north are really taking fishing seriously.
It's a big business. If you look at ice fishing, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure I read in one of these pages that ice fishing was like so many more times bigger than fly fishing. I think if you ask someone in the South or someone who's really avid at fly fishing, they would think, oh man, fly fishing's bigger sport than ice fishing. Ice fishing was massive in terms of the amount of people that do it and the actual spend. I mean, and if you look at New York, it's huge, right? Some of the small states, Delaware, Rhode Island, were pretty low, as I would think. Hawaii was the worst on both. So I don't know if it was like a mistake, but I triple checked this, and this is all published. But I guess maybe they just don't have much of an industry out there. I've personally been sport fishing in Hawaii, and it was really tough to find any good guide, if you will. It was very, 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 at least my experience on the island I was on, it was underwhelming. And only 11 million of total spend. I find that hard to believe with Hawaii, but maybe they're just not reporting it or something. What do you think about that one? That seems off, doesn't it?
And I went there once to visit a buddy who actually used to fish tournaments with. He lives there. We were on a Kauai, and I was surprised on how little access there was. So he had a boat, and to launch it was an ordeal. Like, there was like one, maybe one, definitely one boat launch, possibly two, but it was like not a good launch, where you had to like get there at the exact right tide, otherwise you're out of luck. And even getting out was very dicey, because you had to like go through like this, literally like the boat would barely, like a normal sized boat would barely fit through the channel, and you have to time it between the breakers. Otherwise, like, you're literally getting just wrecked. So it was amazing. It was absolutely amazing fishing. But yeah, it was not nearly as popular as it is here. Like, if there's one boat ramp for an area in Florida, and you go there on the weekend, it's packed. Like, there's a lot of people there. And again, this boat ramp had like 4 trucks, and they all knew each other. So,
and you basically didn't see anyone else out there the whole day.
Yeah.
Yes, I can believe it, just because I didn't see as much, and there's no inshore fishing in Hawaii for the most part. I know there's some, you fish off a few beaches, but as soon as you get past an area that you can hit a golf ball, it's 1,000 feet deep. I mean, they just don't have the inshore and a bunch of big flats like we do. It is definitely a different area. But let's give some other kudos. Georgia was up there at 4.4 billion. Louisiana, 3.1 billion. Minnesota almost got to 5 billion. They were at 4.9, and that didn't come as a surprise. And they have one of the highest amount of total anglers registered. Missouri, 2.1 billion, and obviously a home of Bass Pro and a lot of big companies and all the boat manufacturers that from the Tracker and Ranger, et cetera, and just a lot of great fishing in Missouri. New Jersey was at a 2.6. Oklahoma and Oregon both over the 2 billion. Pennsylvania, another massive state, a lot of water, not as much saltwater in terms of actual access, but a lot of saltwater anglers. They're at 4.2 billion.
And Joe, remember when we started Salt Strong, and at that point we were doing apparel. Like we kept being perplexed, like what? Why are all these people from Pennsylvania buying our stuff? And especially that no banana shirt that we had back in the day, like that. I guess they really liked that story up there. Banana
that was funny. We thought like someone was like scamming us or something. Like, man, what is happening? Why are these Pennsylvania people buying? We never even marketed to them. But yeah, thank you, Pennsylvania. We love you. South Carolina, over 2 billion. Tennessee, over 2.8 billion. Virginia, 2.7 billion. Washington, 2.4 billion. And Wisconsin, 2.4 billion. So they actually fish while they eat cheese. That's it on the states. I want to pull up one other thing, which is this was the heavier duty report. Let's see if I can pull this sucker up. They had a 65 pager, fascinating stuff. Like even talking about the affinities, like meaning things that anglers do. And what would you think would have been like the top affinity that anglers also do this, like something else outdoors?
Yeah, I would have initially guessed, I know what the answer is, but I would initially if put me on the spot, I would have said hunting. That was not correct.
I would have said hunting or boating, and it wasn't either of those. It was camping. That's why I think this data is just so cool. And we're not going to go through all of it because it would take an hour and a half, but you can see here, it's got a little executive summary about the overall trends, that the youth participation is growing. Their fear is this churn. It's down here at the bottom, and it's on page 50 or 13. No, where is it? Anyhow, I miss it. I think it was 50 something. But it talked about, how, yes, fishing is growing. We had, 14 or so million more people, 15 more million new people, but 12.3 million left. I mean, so that's a churn of negative, or it says negative 20, but yeah, 23% is kind of their other leaky bucket. So that's the thing we have to keep our eye on, as we have, this massive amount of baby boomers who are now hitting older ages. And it doesn't mean they're all necessarily passing away, but things happen. It's happened to some of our relatives, right, where they love fishing, and now just the point, it's just a lot. For them, some are disabled, a lot impossible for them to go out in the boat like they used to, and they're just not fishing like they were, and so that would be part of that churn. So it's not necessarily people who are just saying, "Oh, fishing stinks," or "I'm giving up on it." It's a lot of the older people who are just disappearing and or passing away, unfortunately. So that's why it's so critical on us, right, to get the youth, especially 12 and under, out fishing. And I don't have the stat in here, but it was 12 or under was that first like critical one. And then to 18, from 12 to 18 was the next most critical. And then after that, it was almost like you had a 3% chance of ever fishing if you didn't fish before 18. So it's like, we have an opportunity here with kids, grandkids, students, if you're a teacher, neighbors, whatever it might be, to get these kids out fishing. And it makes such a huge difference in the long term, especially to make sure that fishing is growing.
I didn't read that far to know that churn number. Yeah, that's actually like really bad. I mean, like a 20% churn, like for a subscription, if it was like our complex subscription company, that means that something needs to change. And I think a lot of it comes to just not, just people think it's tougher than it really is because there's not detailed training. That's why we took our fishing school live to the public. So for anybody looking to get better at, it's obviously focused on saltwater fishing, but for anybody interested, And just even if you've never done it before, we have a fishing school, and it goes through the very basics, start to finish, on just getting started, and then obviously goes to the intermediate section where you start using lures, and the advanced section where you really start fine tune. But it can be it can be intimidating, and yeah, just having good education can hopefully make that churn number better.
Yes, this is it. This is page 6 or whatever. But yeah, you can see it here. This is the leaky bucket analysis or the churn rate. And I agree. Yeah, that was the most kind of alarming thing in there. It's still growing, but it's something that we can't ignore. And it sounds like it was like this last year they did this as well. So it's not getting worse per se, but it's also not getting better. And we want it to really, really grow. But yeah, you guys go through this. We'll put a link on the blog to get this. It talks about the amount of people that just fished once versus fished. I don't know how many people are fitting in this, but this is a 31%. Occasional participant fishes often as I want. Maybe that is more people than I thought. But very few people that I hear say, "Oh, I fish as often as I want." Most, it's like I would like to fish more often, which is 30%. New to fishing versus returning. Something you mentioned, Luke, here was about reasons why. It even talks about that. Yeah, here's the camping. So camping, walking, hiking, all of that was over hunting. And there's another one. Look at our South region here, crushing it. Number 1, baby. Number 1. But yeah, they break it down by freshwater fishing. And they show the churn on all of that. Saltwater fishing. So saltwater fishing hit the highest level ever, which is pretty awesome. So saltwater fishing was one of the faster growing ones, which was awesome. 5% growth there, 177 million outings. And the most diverse. Golf clap. Luke, golf clap. Saltwater anglers, the most diverse out of all the types of fishermen. Fly fishing. Sorry, we can't hit all of this, but there was something in here that talked about why people give up. Here's another one of those that even like kayaking and stuff. I thought these would be way higher. Who considered fishing? South Atlantic still number 1. African American participation. It just keeps going. Hispanic.
Yeah, it is. At first, I was like, why does it take a year to go through all this stuff? And then when you start looking at the amount of crunching they do, it is definitely a significant undertaking.
All right, profile of a fishing trip. Okay, so now we're getting into some of this. Talks about how many people fish alone. It was only 18% of people fished alone. Everyone else fished with either 2 or 3 to 5 people. Fishing location types, shoreline and river were the highest, and then boat, and then pier and jetty, and then kayak. I thought that was interesting. 78% of adult participants bought some fishing gear and equipment in the last 12 months. Whoop, slam shady, baby. Typical fishing trip. And before you see these numbers, just know the fishermen lie, right? 87% of participants caught at least one fish on their most recent trip. I don't believe that for a second. 43% opted to release their catch to swim another day. 36% kept it. And 1 in 5 reported doing both. Do you believe this, Luke?
Yeah, especially if they're like asking at a boat ramp and there's other people like here and like, oh yeah, I caught a couple. That wasn't me. You got Scott.
Yeah, because they do. This is an annual year-long study, and they do some of it at boat ramps where they're going up and talking to people who are fishing. And so I have to imagine some of this is a little bit wonky. How did participants prepare for the trips? Trip planning. Friends and family, fishing specific website like Saltstrong was 33%, but friends and family were the top 2, which I thought was interesting. Wildlife Fishing Guide, 24, general outdoor websites, 22 retail stores, outdoor magazines, I guess, have lost their luster down at the very, very bottom. This was interesting too about how many people were fishing in private waters or didn't know I needed one. That's pretty funny. And perceptions, this is an interesting one. We'll kind of wrap it up here, but this is the attitudes of first-time participants on like why they do it, like the driver for their first fishing trip. And number one by far was to relax and unwind, and then spending time with friends and family were the top two. And then went down to exciting time catching a lot of fish, but the overall perception of the driver is that it was a stress-free way to do something fun outside. If you look at the top two, it's an exciting way to spend time outdoors, stress-free activity, relax and unwind. I thought that was pretty interesting. Some stereotypes. The top 10 benefits, though, of catching fish overall. Number one, catching fish. Enjoying the sounds and smell of nature. Number two, being close to nature, getting away from the usual demands of life, spending time with friends and family. Man, just what a special outlet. What a special hobby. Who wouldn't love fishing?
Yeah, that's what it's about too. Just getting out with friends and family on the water. That's really been our kind of mission from the get-go, is helping just friends and family create memories. And it is really a unique thing because it's really designed to make that as easy as possible.
And then barriers. The number one barrier of the obstacle to enjoyment of fishing was the spots were crowded, not catching any fish. So now already we know there's some lying here. 84% of people caught fish, but the number two reason was not catching any fish. Being outdoors, the bugs, the heat, the cold. We got a lot of confused fishermen here. Lakes and rivers weren't very clean. The expense, equipment, bait supplies, baiting the hooks or taking the fish off the hook, lack of knowledge, don't like to touch fish worms, not having the right equipment. Hey, guys, we can help with all that. And on here, this is when asked to rank resources that help increase local information on nearby bodies of water, easier, more affordable access boats, how-to tutorials and videos, a lot of the stuff that we're doing, short lessons, information lessons. Pretty cool. So anyhow, then the future of fishing, I didn't get too much out of that one, but that's really it. We wanted to share some of that with you. We'll put the links because we've already gone 30 minutes. This could probably be a 2-hour or 3-hour podcast when we went through all of it. But I think this stuff's fascinating. I love to see the growth. I love to see the growth in certain areas of people, and love to see saltwater is growing as well, and kind of cool that, man, fishing supports that many jobs and is that much of an economic driver. That's eye-opening.
Yeah, and one cool thing about saltwater, if you're in the bucket, which is that number two most common bucket of like a hindrance to fishing, is not enough access to boats. One really awesome thing about saltwater fishing is a boat is not needed at all. It's not freshwater. It is more true, or at least it could be true. But in saltwater, especially during the warm months, or really any time other than winter, most of the, I should say most, but a lot of the biggest fish and really majority of the fish in many instances are holding and feeding up in the shallows that are accessible by walking. So boat is not needed. Like Wader Dave is the perfect example. It's one of our members, and we have obviously a ton of members who wade fish. In many cases, they're catching just as many, if not more, and oftentimes bigger fish than those going from boats. Because wade fishing has a huge advantage. Once you can find some spots, and once you get good at finding spots, and you can access those spots by foot, now you have advantage over the boaters for saltwater fishing. So please, do not let a lack of boat hinder you from going out there and having some fun out on the water, because just some old sneakers is all you need to go out there and have success.
Yep. And we happen to have a layer on Smart Fishing Spots that's called the public land layer. You click one button and it shows you every single piece of public property that you're allowed to go walk on and fish in your entire area, city, state, region, whatever. It's amazing. Like, we found areas that we didn't know. I mean, you'll know about, obviously, like Fort DeSoto Park if you live in St. Pete, and it's 1,000 acres. You can't really miss that. But some of these are like 1, 2, 3, 7 acres, like small things that you probably have driven by and just thought someone owned it, never built on it. And it's government owned. It was supposed to be a park and never turned into one. The state just sitting on it. You're allowed to go use that. It's really, really cool. And so there are so many places that you can go walk through a property and be on the ocean or oyster bars or seagrass or whatever it is, or just sand, and catch a lot of fish. To Luke's point, some of the biggest inshore fish that we've caught have been in less than a foot of water, where boats were trying to come up saying, oh man, I wish I was on land. I could be a little bit quieter. I think that's such a big misconception, right? Because so many people, even when I tell them salt strong, like, oh, you guys do offshore then, right? Like you guys go way out in the ocean. I'm like, actually, no, like we have, and we do some of that, but a lot of it is just inshore. And like, oh, I didn't even know that was possible.
And in some areas, it's to the point where, again, you have an advantage without a boat. There was a tournament series I knew of from, it was when I lived in Tampa, and some guy won it a couple times on a bike, where he would literally drive down, or I should say drive. He'd ride down that long shoreline, that long road right up along the water, and fish the culverts and just do one at a time. And people were so mad. I think apparently got banned, where they forced it from boats because he was beating the boaters in like a pretty exclusive tournament. So
that is awesome.
Yeah, boats are not needed at all. They're helpful, but not needed.
Old street hawk. Cool. Well, guys, make sure if you haven't, come join us in the Insider Club. We help you catch more fish. We help make sure that you are in the right spot at the right time. We have all the tools, technology like smart fishing spots, smart fishing tides, the best and most helpful community for saltwater anglers in America. It is, I pinch myself every morning. I'm in the community. For those of you members who see me in there, I get in there every morning, I'm having coffee and just catching up. I'm learning. I love what people are sharing. I love the camaraderie and the friendships I've made. It is unlike anything else. Now we have chapters where our members, I think there's 27 now as we're recording this, or every month in pretty much every major city in Florida, now in Texas, and moving up the Carolinas and everywhere in between, are meeting and kind of doing life together and sharing spots and tips. It is so cool. And then you got the tackle discounts too, right? I mean, our goal is that as a member, you're saving more than the cost of the membership just on your tackle discounts and the free stuff that we send out every month. That it's an absolute no-brainer for you just on the free stuff. So come join us. It's all at saltstrong.com. We'd love for you to join us in the Insider Club. And it comes with a 365-day, 100% money-back guarantee. Either you're catching more fish, saving time, saving money in your tackle, hopefully meeting some friends, or you don't pay. It's that simple. Anything else, Lukey?
That covers it. Yeah. We'll put a link down below to that, to this data. It's fascinating to go through. I haven't read all of it, but I'll definitely be finishing it later today.
Read about it in a book. All right, guys. We appreciate you. A chat on the next episode.
Want more fishing tips, shortcuts, and tools so you can catch more fish per trip? Then head over to saltstrong.com now and join the movement. Tight lines, and thanks for listening.